And welcome back, listeners. This is your host, Cody Stauffer, for this episode here, coming off a little bit of an illness here. So make sure to, wash your dang hands and eat right this season, as there's a lot of excitement that we got to get to, but we got to be healthy in order to get to it. But that excitement in particular that I am talking about here today are some program previews here. I'm talking about the likes of two programs that are fresh to the scene here in King University, as well as Lees-McCrae here. I'm excited to preview both of these programs today and just kind of take you through a little bit of their background, who's going to be leading the programs, as well as what players are going to be making some noise for them. So without further ado, I am going to start with the likes of King. Now, King University here is going to be an interesting squad that is going to be utilizing kind of experience from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different athletes here, and are going to try and tap into a little bit of experience as well that comes from the program. But before we get into the players and whatnot and the logistics on that front here, I am going to talk about Coach Trevor Cameron here. He comes from Milligan, that he was helping assist at while they were trying to get that program back off the ground after their hiatus a little bit. So he's been around the flag football scene. Obviously, if he was around Coach Witten, then a very, very wise person to learn from, and somebody who I think could help this school progress, as they are a D2 program, mind you, that are in the Conference Carolinas. So this will be an interesting addition. So that gives you kind of an idea of some of the opponents that they will face, and also helps make sense of that Milligan setup as well. But just wanted to touch base on what he's done, as he has definitely looked inward towards Tennessee from those roots and looked for some players there as well as around the country, and has landed some very interesting prospects that I'm excited to talk about today. So some that came off right off the bat here, I'm looking at Anissa Davidson. She made some big splash offensive plays in her highlight reel here. Nija Arnold is somebody who has committed fully to developing as an athlete and just becoming hopefully a high-level defensive back who's a solid flag puller. But the first one that really caught my eye here was Samantha Lee here, listed at quarterback. She's a good athlete here. She can run through flag poles with just high intensity and speed here, while also stretching the field super well. She loves to take deep shots, stretch the field vertically. She's got long strides. She's a bit taller on that 5'9", 5'10", 5'11", kind of height here. So sees the field, stretches the field. Her first throw is a throw on the run that is an absolute dot. And through 6 games, was intrigued to see that she had 1,000 total yards between passing and rushing, along with 18 touchdowns, while also making an appearance at the Under Armour All-American Showcase Bowl type of thing. So, it's interesting to see what she's able to do, and she looks like she's from Tennessee's very own. So that is a big land for Coach Cameron here. Now, trying to catch passes from her, one of the big ones is going to be J.D. Salvador here. Almost went for 2,000 yards and also caught 30 touchdowns. She has very sure hands, very solid catch radius, catching high point passes, low passes, passes that are behind her. So she's got a very nice catch radius, which is exactly what you kind of want out of a wide receiver one. And, she gets downfield quick. She has very good acceleration. In her Northgate film, she, boxes out players and makes physical catches time after time. So I could see her definitely stepping into that wide receiver one role. And to complement her on the other side, potentially, is instead of a smaller, shiftier receiver, is a tall receiver in Elizabeth Jones, 6 feet tall, it's very easy to spot her. And if you're on the defensive side, you better know where she is, because if you don't pay attention and you happen to miss her at 6 feet tall, she's going to remind you how tall she is, and she's going to pluck that football off the top shelf, especially in one-on-one coverage. In her film, she shows that she's not just 6 feet, but she's really that 6.5 feet that she is once she reaches those hands up and does make catches on the top shelf. There's a lot of taller receivers that are coming into the game here of flag football, but they're a bit new, bit raw, and don't really play to their strengths. Elizabeth is not one of those. She will go up and catch the football. She does not mind utilizing her strength and pulling the football down. And, she racked in offers from Milligan, Kansas Wesleyan, and Siena Heights before landing here at King University. She is coming off of an injury. I'm not really sure where she is in her recovery with that, but if she is on the field, she is going to provide a very dynamic and especially red zone threat wide receiver 2 that is going to be very hard to combat if she is fully healthy. Now, if she's not, they have a couple of other receivers here, like a Janelle Duvall, but they also have a gadget player here in Alyssa Ramos, Colorado's very own, out of Doherty High School, who in her senior year racked up over 1,000 all-purpose yards on offense, along with 19 touchdowns, and defensively also recorded 14 interceptions and 60 tackles, while helping lead the Spartans to 11-2 during the regular season of their inaugural sanctioning, and helping them make the playoffs before falling just short against Douglas County. Her explosiveness and her acceleration combined with her agility make her very imposing on offense, and don't let her frame let her get overlooked on the defensive side of the ball, because that is when she's going to pluck it out of the air and has the ability, has the shiftiness to take it to the house. So with playmakers like this on both sides of the ball, as well as, a better answer at quarterback than I've seen at some universities, it'll be interesting to see how King does this year. Now, looking ahead at this schedule here, they're going to open up on February 28th against Emmanuel University, while also playing Erskine College. Now, these are universities that are both kind of developing and haven't had the richest success to date. So I think that these are good starts and, could potentially lead to the first win in program history. But you can't overlook schools like Emmanuel that have been around for a little bit and see if they've bulked up and improved from last year. Now, heading into March, they're going to go to Cumberland University and then play Huntingdon College on the 7th. On the 14th, they're going to play at home a doubleheader against Wingate and Lees-McCrae. Lees-McCrae I'll talk about. Wingate is a team that Coach V talked about. I think that this is a very, very tough two-game matchup that's going to help a lot of these athletes, especially the dual sport athletes that this squad brings in, get a lot of experience, I think. I think that if you are able to win one of these games, I would be ecstatic, but that is not necessarily my expectation heading into these matchups. Now, on March 18th, they will play Milligan, and on the 24th, they will play Milligan again. They'll go home and then away there. So, Coach Cameron getting a couple of matchups. Now, this Milligan squad is very, very talented. They won the silver bracket last year. Now that it is a sanctioned NAIA sport and every win matters for a chance to be invited to the big invitational at the end, I think that these games are going to be taken very, very seriously here, and Milligan here is not going to have a soft spot for their former guy, who I think might still be going to school there, but I'm not 100% sure. Then on March 29th, they will have a home doubleheader against Mount St. Mary's University, as well as Ferrum College. Ferrum is somebody who I have previewed, so go ahead and check that out. And for any and other teams that were previewed, please check out our past episodes. And then in April here, they're going to be in North Carolina facing off against Barton and the University of Mount St. Olive on April 4th. The very next week, they'll travel to Mars Hill University and compete against Chowan University later that day, and then have the Conference Carolinas tournament held April 17th through 19th. I'm assuming that the host of that tournament will be determined by whoever probably wins the most games over the course of the regular season here. So it should be interesting here for King University. I think that this is a schedule that will help them record a few wins and also test them a little bit. I don't know where they stand as far as being a contender for the Conference Carolinas, but that is to be determined, and they are in charge of their own destiny there. But between Coach Cameron as well as the addition recently, I forgot to congratulate Coach Frazier, who's an assistant coach there as well, coming from Virginia here, where he was doing kind of more tackle football stuff, as well as working with Special Olympic athletes, and even a few years of high school football where he played as well. He's going to be an interesting addition here for this staff and for these young women who are looking to help carve out their legacy here at King University in their very first season at flag football. Now, this next squad here, Lees-McCrae here, this team is going to be very interesting, and I am very excited to see what all that they can accomplish here, as they too are a representative of the Conference Carolinas here and have made significant moves here in order to try and be ready year one. So for this program here at Lees-McCrae, they did hire a very experienced Florida mind here in Mike Brown, who has a ton of club experience here, working up to a .716. That is a 72% in my book win percentage over various club tournaments and competitions in over 120 games with the likes of Prime GP14 as well as Duval Divas and a few other appearances and respected sites that render him as a very competent and confident coach as well. On the high school level, he coached the Mandarin Mustangs to a 36-22 record and also earned 2 Coach of the Week honors here. And he wasted absolutely no time snatching up a few players from the transfer portal here. Now, I noticed that one of them that he swiped up was from Bryant and Stratton and Shelby McLean. Her season at Bryant and Stratton, she had 47 receptions for 308 yards as well as 3 touchdowns. He also picked up Julia Lampton, who in high school had a few interceptions and is bringing in from Siena Heights, but really putting in work, unfortunately, on our friends over at William Woods. Did get to see all of these athletes compete at some point last year, whether it was at Nationals or at the Flag Frenzy in Campbellsville, starting off with Kennedy Van Noy, who last year for the Owls caught for almost 500 yards as well as 9 touchdowns while returning 2 punts to the house, and defensively also recorded 8 interceptions in a defense with highly placed responsibility on individuals. He also brings in Jaden Jalbert, who had 45 tackles and 6 pass breakups at William Woods, as well as fellow receiver Natalia Hernandez de Leon, who had 236 yards and 4 touchdowns. And believe it or not, he brings in the quarterback who is dishing it to them all, who threw for over 2,700 yards as well as 38 touchdowns, Mackenzie Hicks here. She helped lead this William Woods team to the Silver Bracket Championship and was just a freshman leading other freshmen with flashes of excellence along the way, but also room for improvement as she did throw 24 interceptions, but still more touchdowns than interceptions. It's looking like she is slated to be the starter here at Lees-McCrae, and with her experience and with the offseason and some familiarity as well, there is a lot to be positive about for this squad. Now, as far as some new faces that are going to be coming in, I see like a Mackenzie Walker. She was used a lot as a running back, but just moves across the field super well. She has decisive footwork, decisive burst, not afraid to spin or juke, and defensively just attacks the ball and just really looks the part of a polished and instinctual football player, which is always good to bring in for both sides of the ball. You also have Ashley Alvarado, a big-time playmaker on the defensive side of the football, who's just not afraid to attack the football in air. Over 3 seasons, recorded nearly 150 tackles, but her junior year in high school, she recorded 8 interceptions for over 100 interception return yards. She also made plays on offense and just brings a very dynamic and aggressive way of attacking the football. And then this team also has a couple of burners here. I'm looking at Yuri Sellers as well as Sophia Antwi Silva here, or Antwi, sorry if I said that wrong, Sophia. But both of these athletes just have another gear when the ball's in their hands and they're on that sideline, that once they turn it up to gear 5, they are not going to get caught by anybody no matter what the angle is. And they have incredible speed. And obviously, you combine that with some of the experience that some of these other players have downfield, and Mackenzie Hicks, who has a strong arm and can push it downfield. These are 2 athletes that are in great positions and are poised to make some serious plays, whether on the ends of catching and getting upfield, maybe running some go routes and getting a ball just placed right in their breadbasket, or getting some jet sweeps here. There's going to be interesting ways to use these players and these athletes to build a really balanced offense. And so I think that this team is going to be competitive. I think that they are one of my top 25 teams heading into the season, which I know is a little bit of a spoiler for our power rankings, so stay tuned for that. But, I think that defensively, it's going to be interesting to see if they can get, kind of that two-way workhorse mentality and just that cardio, honestly, out of the likes of a Van Noy for another season. I know that they have Jaden Jalbert, but I think that they're going to need to use Walker as well as Alvarado, as well as Sellers and Antwi Silva, and just all of these players on both sides of the ball. I think it is also worth mentioning that this roster does also sport Ava Rivera. She is somebody who could be used in dual quarterback sets, could be used in a backup scenario, or could also maybe compete depending on what happens with the season. And I just want to make sure that I covered her accomplishments and accolades and what makes her special here, as she is a Florida quarterback. She did amass over 6,000 yards and 83 touchdowns in her high school career. And so I think that that is something to just keep in mind, that this team, if hopefully nothing happens to Hicks, but, maybe we'll get to see Rivera in some action, whether that's from Hicks running up the score a little bit, or if this team has to look another way. They do have options to keep their season alive and afloat, so it's never really time to hit the panic button on this team that I trust a lot with Coach Brown, as well as just the athletes and the experience that they bring in, both from the high school and college level. Now, looking ahead to their schedule, they got their first action here on February 7th here, 10 a.m. against the likes of North Carolina Central University. Haven't heard a whole lot about them, but then they also play Charlotte. I think that they should do well in both those games, but their real first test, in my opinion, comes on the road at Kaiser on February 19th. This will be a really good test to see where they're at. And then their game the following day against Daytona State College is not one to overlook, in my opinion. I think that Daytona State is a very competent school and one of the best junior colleges in the country, and they're actually in my top 25 as well, even with their semi-final appearance, or their championship appearance, where they came up as the second place of the tournament last year. I still think that they're a very strong squad that has a lot to look forward to. And then they play the new look Thomas as well on that weekend, and Florida Gateway, who that is a crazy weekend. Kaiser, Daytona State, Thomas, and Florida Gateway. Those are 4 of the top teams in the entire country. And we'll see what Lees-McCrae is made of. If they're with it, then they're with it. But, I think that if you go 2-2, you should be ecstatic with this trip. If you go 0-4, I think that you just got to take what you can and learn from it and move on. They followed that up with games against Chowan as well as Erskine and Emmanuel to close out their February before having a 2-week break and then playing King, who we just talked about. Now, in that matchup, just based off of what I've looked at so far, I do have Lees-McCrae currently favored, but the course of the season could change my mind. That very same day, they also play Wingate in what could be a battle of the two teams who are trying to win this Conference Carolina potentially. And it should be interesting to see Mackenzie Hicks and some of these William Woods players go against their former coach in Joe Schlager. You know, it's low-hanging fruit, but it's a storyline nonetheless, and one that I'm going to bring up. We'll see if they come out ready to play and see how they play against their former teammates who they used to rep against all the time in practice. And if you want to know all the juicy details on some of those transfers, please listen to Coach V's preview of Wingate. Now, the very next week, they play Wittenberg before going on the road against Milligan. I think that this should be a very interesting game to show us where both of these squads are, and this game could determine a top 10 spot at this point in the season. We'll just have to see what happens with the other programs in the country, but I think that that could be a very exciting game. They then have a home game against Mars Hill, and on the very same day, Mount St. Mary's, before taking a break for the rest of March and coming back on April 4th with games against Mount Olive and Barton, and then wrapping up against Ferrum and Hollins on April 8th, and then that Conference Carolinas Championship. This Lees-McCrae team should be right around 500, if not over 500, in my opinion. I think that they're going to have some serious tests, but if they learn the right lessons at the right time, they should be able to make a run for this Conference Carolina. I have a lot of confidence in this squad, especially with a squad that is so experienced. And like I said, Mackenzie Hicks, she's currently in the driver's seat, it looks like, as far as what I can tell from off-season work, and is a good spot to hopefully take a step forward with some familiar weapons as well as some different weapons for that offense. And then we'll see what this defense is able to accomplish here. But, you know, against other inexperienced programs, if it comes to a shootout, I have a lot of trust in this squad and Coach Mike Brown here for Lees-McCrae to produce for this team. Now, I know that we want more previews and we want to get more done here, but we are trying to survive a little bit here at PMC, as I unfortunately got Coach V sick and I'm coming back from my own illness, and we are trying to get all of our affairs in order as the season is just right around the corner. Stay tuned, as we're going to have a lot of fun new stuff this season, and we're going to break it up for a few different episodes. As far as our recaps, there's so much to talk about with JUCO flag football, D3, D2, NAIA, and the continual growth that we have seen from all of these levels of flag football. We are so excited to cover it. So many juicy storylines with tons of transfers, tension, and new faces, new coaches, new places, all trying to get lined up for what should be one of the most electric and smashing flag football seasons on the collegiate level that we have covered to date. We are also going to bring in some flag football legends that are going to help us rank these different squads and try and give us a national poll here. And following that, we are also going to continue to recap all of these teams and talk about some of the best playmakers in the country everywhere you listen to podcasts, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, or whatever those podcasts are called. We also have these episodes up on YouTube. Please be sure to follow and subscribe to us on all of those channels and media outlets. Be sure to also follow us on social media, whether that be Facebook, Playmakers Corner, Twitter/X at Playmaker Corner. We're on TikTok still, despite it going under new change and ownership and being a little weird. We're still there at Playmakers Corner on TikTok, so be sure to follow us there as well as Instagram. Turn on your notifications and stay tuned for a dynamic, fiery flag football season. I've been your host for this episode, Cody Stauffer, signing off. Peace.